evaluation that we're doing in the moment. So there's a theory called appreciative inquiry, where you're trying to ask questions and to get a gauge on what's going on, but you're also trying to bring out the best of the culture and of the organization of what's taking place. And you're trying. What is a positive experience that you've had related to research, where you've been involved in this process?
Many years ago, I would take my children out for a walk in the morning, and it's not research I did, but it just so happened the librarian had commented on how much calmer they were, how much more focused they were, and now.
How can research be used to improve your school or your organization? Or some things that might have come up?
I was talking about the concept of right now we do a modified block schedule. So we do 3 periods, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and then we do 2 block periods on Wednesday and Thursday. So I'm just kind of curious if that's actually beneficial for our students, or if we would get more out of either or.
There's 2 ways to ask this question, all right? How to improve a school, or we can ask the question, what's a problem at your school, okay? And think about how the tone of the question changes. Inevitably, we're going to ask what are some problems that are taking place at your school. You're going to be thinking about the same types of things. But hopefully, with the appreciative model, you're asking a question of yourself, of your colleagues, perhaps of your students, that looks forward, moves them forward. Okay?
Is called concentration. So we're going to start with this team on my right is going to be the group that's concentrating. You need to take a good hard look at the person standing across from you, from shoes up to head. After 30 seconds, I'm going to ask the panel on the right here, my right, to turn around. Over here, you're going to have 30 seconds to make at least 5 changes to yourself.
Oh yeah!
30 seconds to change 5 things about yourself. Cranium is that you have Play-Doh and you have items on a card. So you look at that card and you have to recreate that object using Play-Doh, and your other teammates have to guess. A finger. 1. Sunday. Explosion country. But the way that I use this in my classroom is there's different methods that you can use, and I purposely set a 4-minute time limit so that we weren't going on forever with it. And I have different versions that we'll bring up later on. But I used this in my classroom when I was teaching the immigration unit, and I found out that my students were associating speaking English with intelligence. And we're saying that people weren't intelligent and weren't smart because they weren't able to speak English. And so I thought, how can I bring in some experiential way that they can experience this themselves? And so we had them do this activity, and then they discussed what it felt like when they knew what they were trying to share and what they were talking about, but other people weren't understanding, and how frustrating that might have been for them.
Picture yourselves driving down the most busy highway in your area on a Friday night, on your way home from a restaurant, on the way from a happy hour, something like that, when you see that orange sign saying sobriety checkpoint ahead. That is an example of a systematic, random selection process.
Take urban, suburban, and rural districts.
Right, when you're going to take a stratified random sample, you have to decide on what subgroups you're going to put them in before you make your selections. So you would split up the entire population into however many categories.
And then we want to keep the sampling the same, as far as we decided to take 20% from each subgroup. So we would take this guy would be in our study,
and then we had 6 here. And so we said that this was urban, right? Suburban, and rural.
So now we have our group that we are going to survey and sample.
So quota sampling looks like the last 2, where you kind of find a predetermined feature and you break people up based on that. So we're kind of using, as an example, we're going to use our candies, but we're using age groups. 21 from that group, but they're still going to take 2 from all the other groups. But the quota is going to be a lot smaller. So they still have a diverse study, they're getting everyone's input, but most of the input that they're getting is from the group that they want.
Just one, please.
But the definition was it's usually a judgmental sample, and it's one that's selected based on the knowledge of the population and purpose of that study. So subjects are selected based on a characteristic. So our characteristic was what percentage of you will not want to participate.
My first question to you, and this is, don't look to anybody else for the answer. Do you consider yourself to be tall or short? We classified ourselves based on one category. We were either tall or we were short. Can you think of different types of categories that we classify our students into? Yes. On grade level, not on grade level. That's a nominal variable. That's a type of data where we're putting people into boxes, into categories. 5'3", 5'4", we're all at equal intervals going across the room. We put in an identity variable by category, and we rank you, and I put you at intervals. When in education do we use that for students, where they're ranked at intervals?
Advanced, proficient, and below, and then in those 3 categories, they have a total score. So those total scores will see them and see how many kids got a 1, how many kids got a 2, how many kids got a 3, and then those kids are the ones that are broken into the classes.
Selection is just what it seems. You don't select at random, you pick your own team. For example, think of PSSAs. If you only measure results of AP students, is that a reliable way?
It's no mystery, it is the history that another event could be more prevalent and destroy our victory. Sesame Street and Head Start came out at the same time, and research are unclear which one had more effect on kids.
The research seemed sublime until I forgot to calculate time. I thought the results were a success, but this aging is a mess. If I'd kept a group in a box, that could have made up for the clocks.
So we found 2 really good examples, but we thought the cartoons were funny. The first one says, of course I've become more mature since you started treating me, since I was 14 years old at the time. And then the other one is 2 aging researchers, shoot, we better hurry up and figure this thing out. So the 2 main examples we found was, the first one was about cold remedies. If all of you had a cold and I gave you all a cold treatment and you all got better, well, it could be the fact that I gave you the cold treatment, or you could have just gotten better.
Our research question was, how does play transform life? And that where it's focused not only on people, but on animals and all living things.
In the video, if the purpose is more important than the act of doing it, it's probably not play. So you have to make sure that it's allowing kids and adults to have that freedom to make choices without structure. But what we can do is we can let kids play in an environment where they know they're going to be safe. They don't have to be fearful of failing or of being hurt emotionally or physically. And it's our job to guide them into these play habits.
The steps to learn anything in 24 hours, he said, deconstruct the skill, so break the skill into smaller pieces. Learn enough to self-correct. Don't spend 20 hours reading before you even try something. Start doing it and then correcting yourself as you go, so that your learning is practice and your practice is learning. Okay? Remove practice barriers like your phone, the TV, the radio, other people distracting you. And practice for at least 20 hours.
And then we also talked about the idea of, like, for example, my biology students. I don't need them to be in my biology class leaving to be biologists. We need to kind of have a defined skill set of what they need, as opposed to becoming an expert once they leave. Do they really?
Our research question that we thought, after going through it all, there were many. We didn't know if it was how do we measure vulnerability, and then she was talking about shame in there that she got from her vulnerability study, but then
she talked about worthiness.
Yes.
At some point.
There were tons of different feelings and everything like that, but what we got was what makes a person wholehearted at school every day, how to live wholeheartedly and show their emotions, and how that just makes them a better person. And personally, we just should treat all of our relationships through a wholehearted lens.
Decades ago, if you were going to operate a car, you need to be able to service that car if you're stranded on the side of the road. So you have services like AAA now, you have OnStar, all those types of things. So what he was saying is you let the computer do the work for you.
And he was hearing more and more the teachers were saying there weren't enough hours in a school day to meet the needs of the students. So he was trying to figure out what he could do creatively with his network of writers to address that issue.
So the actual research question that we derived from what he was talking about is, can we use the writing networks, whether it's professional, grad students, professors, etc., with scheduling and flexibility and an interest in literacy to offer students one-on-one tutoring to fill in the need in place due to constraints within a school district or within the educational system.
Right. So this urban setting limits his sampling size. There's no way to tell, is this working in a rural setting, because it's not available in a rural setting. Plus, even though there are 10 and it continues to grow, and really the end of this, the whole point of this video was to encourage other people and empower other people to do similar projects. So the goal of this work is, this was a seed and to see outreach, but right now that outreach doesn't exist. So the sampling size is limited by the fact that it's small.